Hey listeners, welcome to Grit and Growth, where we explore what it really takes to achieve excellence in sport, leadership, and everyday life.
We're talking mindset, character, and faith in action. The daily pursuit of becoming your best in every arena.
I'm Justin Simpkins, founder and director of Prairie Hockey Academy, storyteller, passionate about growth, and reader of books on leadership and personal development.
And I'm Shane Sowden, head coach of Briarcrest men's basketball, a mentor to coaches and youth who believes leadership starts with the heart and grows through purpose.
Hey, we've been friends for over 15 years, and this podcast builds on conversations that we've shared with each other and with mentors, coaches, and leaders who have helped shape us along the way.
So get ready to rise to a higher level of excellence.
You're listening to Grit and Growth. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Grit and Growth Show. Today is a bit of a special episode for us. We're going to try something new, and we have a special guest like we always do, but today it's a good friend of Shane and mine. His name is Stephen Clements. Stephen, welcome to today's show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You know, like I said earlier, thanks for just saying yes and joining us, because this is kind of fun. Oftentimes, you know, Shane and I will dive into conversations just, you know, around leadership and faith and sport and how people can show up in pursuing excellence in those things in their life. And we want to talk about all those with you, and you're well versed in them. But you know, a while ago, you started a really cool blog. I think it's a Substack, it'd be called, or a blog, and it's called Show Up and Serve. And Shane and I have been following it for quite some time and referenced some of the points. It had a lot of great Blue Jays moments in it, I must say. But most recently, you've been writing a really cool post about Philip Rivers, and that's been taking a lot of headlines. And so, for one of the first times ever, we want to do this show differently. We want to talk about current events, and one of those is this whole conversation about Philip Rivers that you just wrote about yesterday, I want to say, or last week, I should say.
No, it was yesterday. Yeah, it was it was yesterday. You guys are right on time here. Yeah, because you just played this past Sunday. So
yeah. And he's playing again this Monday Night Football against the 49ers.
That's
starting
right.
again.
That's right.
Yeah. And when this episode airs, so people who are listening to this are getting this, Tuesday at noon Central Time. And so he would have just played a Monday Nighter last night, and we won't have that live take on it here. But we can at least talk about his willingness to say yes and to show up and to play that Sunday game against the Seahawks, which, you know, didn't end the way I'd hoped it would. But
well, yeah, but who is Philip Rivers? Let's start with this, because there'll be listeners like, who's this guy? 45 years old, future Hall of Famer, been coaching high school football for the last 5 years, and gets the call. Indianapolis Colts have a few injuries. Top two quarterbacks are down. Hey, you haven't played in 5 years. You want to play again? And he says, sure. Signs a contract on Wednesday, and he's playing on Sunday. Are you kidding me?
Shane, are you going to come back and pitch on next week? Or
I haven't watched a lot of football this year. I've tuned in a few times. I got a subscription, which I'm overpaying for. But I tuned into that game, and every time I saw him throw, I thought I could feel like my old pitching injuries come back. And then the one time where, like, he did awesome, but the one time he dropped back and literally just fell over, I was like, yep, that's what I was. But then, you know, throws a touchdown pass, got away from a few tackles a few times. He doesn't have the cannon like he used to. But are you kidding me? I'm scared to go play senior men's now because of injury. And he jumped in there at 45 against some of the freakiest athletes in the world trying to rip his head off. And he almost pulled off a huge upset over the Seahawks.
Now, for all the Philip Rivers fans out there, you're probably screaming at the radio right now saying, he's 44, Shane. You know, it's not 45. Quit aging this guy.
He's almost 45. He's like very close.
We can round up on your McDonald's Happy Meal. Not on his age. Leave the guy be 44.
Hey, anyways, we're not going to talk about Happy Meals.
So, Stephen, what caught your eye on this? And why did you quickly decide to write an article about Philip?
Well, I've been writing a weekly article for the last year, almost 7 or 8 months. And I had something already written. I wrote it last week on a trip to Scottsdale, Arizona. So I wrote 2 parts. One was I was ready to post it, and then just was kind of proofing it. And I was just thinking about this Philip Rivers story and went, this is crazy. Like, how does this even happen? And how does a 44, soon to be 45-year-old guy get off the couch and play in the toughest league, and put himself at risk, everything at risk. I can't even imagine. So I just thought I just want to dig into it a little bit more. So I just kind of did a little bit of research and went, this is like a really cool story. So so it just kind of caught my attention that, and I thought about some things like, and I looked at it this morning again, like who else got the call? Like I'm wondering if he didn't call Shane because he's a baseball player, but he didn't call me, he didn't call you, but they might have called a bunch of other people. Like some people think they might have called Sam Bradford, or they might have called, Matt Ryan. I just actually saw something this morning where he said, no, they did not call me. I worked out with somebody in the summer and I was awful. He goes, so I wouldn't have called me either. So but he's only 41 and other guys are in their 30s, and like they go right to the 44-year-old guy. So, and it just got me thinking, like, how many other people said no? Like, I can't do that. No chance. Like, you want me to come tomorrow? On Monday, he showed up at training at their camp on Monday, threw the ball, signed the practice roster on Tuesday, and Wednesday is taking starting QB reps. So I just thought that was crazy. Like, how did this even happen? Right. But I just thought, like, what made him say yes? Like that was kind of my thought. Like, why would he do that? Like, why would he do that? So that was kind of where it started. And I just kind of dug in a little bit, try to find a little more about the story.
Well, and as you dug in, there's some little cool storylines, like before, like there's interviews before, there's the game, there's the post-game interviews, they end up losing a close game, but that's not what stood out. So through the whole thing, what stood out to you from Philip's perspective on the whole situation?
I think that he was willing to do it. Like just the fact that he was willing to take that risk. Like, they talked about, you mentioned earlier, he's probably a Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't know what the NFL rules are, but there's so many years before you're eligible for the Hall of Fame. I know some leagues it's 5. I don't know if that's the rules, but he set that back because now he's a player again. So he's not retired. So if he's waiting, he might have to wait another 5 years to be voted into the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. He's like got 10 kids. 10. Like, maybe he wanted to get out of the house. Maybe that's what he did. I don't know. But he's got one grandkid. He coaches a high school football team. His son's apparently the star quarterback. So, like, he could go out there and totally flop. And his kids go, you stink, coach. Yeah. And they have all this perception of this Hall of Fame quarterback to actually go on the field against the best players in the world and put that at risk by thinking, like, coach, you really sucked. Like, that was awful. Like, how did you do that? People probably saw the social media clip of his, if you didn't see it, look, you Google it or whatever, but his high school football team was just cheering and yelling. They all watched the game together and they were going crazy when he threw the touchdown pass. So but what if he would have flopped? Like, what if he would have like fell down more than once? What if he would have got injured? What if he would have, like, all these things could happen? But, like, I think about me, like, I'm trying to working on a new possibility for me right now. And, I'm 20 years older than Philip Rivers. I'm thinking, man, I'm too old. And can I really do that? And like, I'm thinking about all the negatives, right? So I can only imagine what he thought about going into that. So just the fact that he was willing to say yes, that really blows me away. Well,
I love you wrote that quote in your article, and I really encourage everybody who's listening to this, go check out your Substack, Show Up and Serve. And so they're interviewing Rivers after the game. And so there's all these people talking, well, why are you doing this? Like, is it ego? Are you unfulfilled? All these sorts of things. And none of that. And he says, well, this isn't the motivation, but I hope it will inspire or teach others not to run or be scared of what may or may not happen. Mm-hmm. I think of my sons and the ball players I'm in charge of at the school, that they'll say, crap, coach wasn't scared. Sometimes there's doubt and it's real. The safe bet is to go home. But the other one is, shoot, we'll see what happens. And whatever God's will, I'm happy with. And, the quote that got me, you scroll down the article a little bit, because again, all the pundits are chiming in, right, with their take on this. And Robert Griffin III said this, and as a coach and as a father, this one hit me. When you've got a coach who tells people to be fearless, nothing hits harder than when that coach actually goes out and lives it. Because there's so many times, like, we talk about what we say, what we prep, but like, it's that whole motto of more is caught than taught. And I wonder if in this moment, Philip just had it. He's like, man, I get to go. I have an opportunity that not many people get to have, to go live what I've been preaching. And that's going to go way further than any team time, any meeting, any pregame chat, the impact is going to be years in the making here.
As you say that, Shane, I didn't write this in the story, but I think about it that part of his process must have been that his identity was not in himself as a quarterback, because he wouldn't do it. Like, he wouldn't say, because you're going to see me at my 44-year-old best versus you're not going to see me at my 30-year-old best when I was one of the best quarterbacks in the world.
Yeah.
So he was willing to like screw up. Like, he was willing to like look terrible. He was willing to like, because even if he did, it wouldn't have changed his life. Like, he would have said, "Hey guys, I still tried." Like I went out there and I didn't shy away from this challenge, even though, it looks, because who knows what's going to happen. Like, if you listen to this Tuesday morning, you listen to this, maybe Monday night, he throws 10 interceptions. Like, who knows what happens. Right. So, but just the fact that a lot of people would have had too much pride to say, "Oh, I'm not doing that, because what if I look really bad?" That's all people are going to remember. Like, think about all the boxers that have come out of retirement and fight till they're 50, and you want to close your eyes. I can't watch this guy, because it's embarrassing you feel embarrassed for them because they were so good athletes and now they're like hanging on by a thread. So I don't know, just thought of that his identity. And, from what I read, he's a person of faith. He's a Catholic, strong, devout Catholic. And, that's part of his identity, is that, he trusted that this is what God wanted him to do. So somewhere in there's something about identity, that not being in football, but being in who he is as a person and who he is as a father and a coach and a husband and all those kind of things. So.
Yeah, I just think of, like, you'd love to just, maybe we'll get more of the story as time goes here over our holiday season and stuff. But it's like, what, he's got 10 kids. I mean, I have 3. All 3 have strong opinions. I imagine having 10 opinions about, "Dad, what, Dad, what are you doing this for? Dad, you're going to miss my play. Dad, you're going to," like, whatever it is, right? It's like, so what, I just am intrigued, like, what would all those conversations have been like, is what kind of my mind goes. And it's like, but again, it's about this identity piece. And obviously he's strong in that, because so many of us are scared to put ourselves out on anything. And yet he goes on national television to, with millions of people watching, to potentially, fall over when he does a drop back. And that's not going to define who he is. And so I think that's really neat. Stephen, one of the pieces that struck me with this article as well, and we can get a bit into your story, but I'm also, I think before we go to your story, I think what the other piece inside of me is going, someone else also had the courage to write Philip Rivers' name on the board in some boardroom somewhere, because this conversation was going on behind the scenes with a general manager, possibly the Indianapolis Colts, the owner, right? The daughter, who's now on the sidelines for all these games. I mean, she's making a lot of headlines in just how she's showing up and serving and leading right on the sidelines. And so, what conversations were happening there? Who got called names in a boardroom? Because this happens. Someone had to be courageous to throw this out and got told they were stupid as well, right? You've been a part of these executive meetings, Stephen, in your career, when bold ideas were put out there, and some were really crazy, and some maybe never got the light of day, and maybe some worked out.
Yeah, it's that's a really good call. And I think I can just envision that, like it must have just been like, "Are you nuts?" Like, he's 44 years old. He hasn't played in 5 years. He's like, he's probably 50 pounds overweight, which means he also probably keeps himself in pretty good shape, which is another thing I thought about. But although they did ask him a question, I'm going a little sideways. They did ask him a question. I looked at one interview this morning. They said, "How much do you weigh?" And he said, "I don't really know." So that was his answer. But he does look a little chubbier than when he played. But so
that's
I'm sure
physical.
He's got extra padding. He's got extra padding now. It's
yeah,
good.
but you know what? I think that's part of that's part of what I experienced in the corporate world. Working for Canadian Tire Corporation, part of the Sport Check division. I mean, we had a $2.5 billion division. I was on the executive team. We'd have meetings where, somebody would throw out an idea, and you knew it was either you're supporter or you were against it. But a lot of people would wait to see what the boss thought before they would speak. So part of what I learned is that, I was at that table and I had to speak up. So if I had an idea or I had a thought on something, I would say it, because that's why, otherwise I shouldn't be in the room. So I imagine that, it was probably the GM, or who knows where the idea came from. I think this is going to make a great TV movie, or a mini series on Netflix. Somebody's already got the TV rights. If I was a producer, I'd be buying them right now. But I can see
Jerry Bruckheimer's all over it already.
Starting back to like to your point, the first person that mentioned his name. Like, let's start there, and right in the boardroom, like pan to the boardroom, and there's the three of us talking, and it's like two of them said, "You got to be crazy," and they said, "Well, let's see what happens, and then let's see who maybe Matt Ryan mention other names, and then." Anyway, so you're right. I think it takes courage to come up with a bold idea, and then for that bold idea to be supported by the group. Because even imagine going to the coach then and saying, this is the best we can find for you this weekend as a 44-year-old guy. Because there's other people on practice squads. I don't know how the NFL trade deadline rules work and stuff, but I'm sure they could have found somebody. I mean,
they had their third stringer there, didn't they?
Yeah, there was some other injuries, but there's probably somebody there. And then, I mean, there's CFL, there's like the Arena Football League, there's all these other leagues. There's got to be other people out there. I think somebody's got to say there's got to be somebody better than a 44-year-old guy, right? But bold ideas are often shot down really quickly, and so I think that's interesting to think about what that would look like in a boardroom for sure. I'd love to be fly on a wall, like I think we got some of that in Moneyball. Like, that's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, anybody go watch that. But you can kind of see the behind the scenes and how the kind of some of that works in a pro sports environment.
And I think F1 is another great movie with Brad Pitt.
Fantastic.
Came out of like this, where the owner in this like act of desperation goes to an old friend who has been through a lot, but thinks that he might have maybe the character and the experience to help a young star out, right? And everyone calls them crazy, and we could talk about that for a while. But the same idea. I think part of me, what goes to show is that somebody recognized probably Philip Rivers' character and his work ethic of the body of work of his career. And so when I'm thinking about young athletes today, or even leadership professionals that are in leadership positions, I should say, it's like, at times, you just don't know when another opportunity might come your way, but your body of work and the character that you lived by, and the people that you impacted, that might have, for all we know, it might have just been a video coach. It might have been an equipment manager, or somebody that brought Philip's name forward because of how he treated them over his career, maybe 15 years ago when they were on the same program together. We don't know. But all these relationships probably matter. So they could trust that Philip would show up on a Wednesday. He'd say yes, maybe, to this challenge. He'd show up on a Wednesday, play on a Sunday, and somehow learn a playbook to be able to call it as well. I think we're not talking about the game of ice hockey where there's like, hey, show up and go up and down the wing here and bang a body or two, and you just still know how to pass the puck. We're talking about plays and routes and like high level strategy, a new playbook.
Well, I think they cut the playbook in half a little bit because you couldn't throw more than 30 yards. But anyway, still.
Yeah, it's for sure been cut. But
one of the things, when I looked at this morning, just trying to get a little more background about who they might have called. And one of the things that I read somewhere was that it was this leadership profile that put him ahead of some of those other guys that maybe were physically would be able to do it, but they left the game. And like Jay Cutler was one. There was some other people that, I don't know these people personally, but they just thought that maybe physically they would have more tools than him, but he had the leadership profile that he could step into that locker room, gain the respect, step into that huddle. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. Like,
no,
I couldn't do it. Like, and there'd be a lot of guys that have played pro football that couldn't do it. Like, for him to be able to have the leadership profile, that's what they talked about, was leadership profile, to be able to take that task on and win over his teammates. Cause I don't know if they put a C on him, but the quarterback's always the captain. So basically this guy shows up on Monday, Tuesday is on the practice squad, Wednesday is the starting quarterback, and Sunday is the captain of the team. Like, wow, crazy. But the leadership profile over the physical tools of only being able to throw 30 yards, if that's true, I'm sure they could have found somebody else that could throw 70 yards still. And actually, I did see one this morning that's, who was it? Vince Young or somebody that was really upset that he didn't get the call. He didn't get the call. And he was doing a podcast. And he was talking about, I'm not even retired yet. Like, I'm not even retired yet, and I didn't get the call. So like, So
Yeah.
that's going to come out. Like, I didn't get the call. I didn't get the call. Matt Ryan was interviewed. Like, I looked it up this morning. They actually was a little TikTokers or Instagram thing. Matt Ryan saying like why he didn't get the call, and he understood why he didn't get the call. So there's going to be a whole thing. Hey, how come you didn't get the call? How come?
Yeah.
Well, I did get the call. Like, so I'm curious to see who. But if it really was the leadership profile that trumped the physical tools, which is a message.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get that on Monday night with Peyton and Eli. They're just both gonna be sitting there with their arms up, like, I didn't know why you didn't call me.
Eli's only a year older, I think. That's right.
Eli could have done it. I've seen. Yeah. You just hit on something like really profound that I don't want to skip over, is that we look at the physical attributes. That seems to be the first thing we look at all the time, all the way down to youth sports, right? You got this 10-year-old who can skate up and down the ice, or this kid who's taller than everybody, or can hit the ball farther, or whatever it is. And we're like, oh, that kid has a future. Well, we're so focused on just the physical attributes. And we rarely, whether it's as parents or youth coaches, Stephen, you coached youth sports for a long time. We rarely hear about, well, do you make your teammates better? What kind of teammate are you? How do you treat, the refs, your coaches? Are you learning every day? Like, what's your attitude? How do you show up? What's your effort? What's your attitude? Like, all those sorts of things. And, I hadn't thought about that so much, but it's just like, yeah, Philip, he's a leader. He can step into that huddle and he will have trust and respect from the get-go. One, because he's willing to do this, but also two, because of who he was before and who he is. And it's so easy to focus on X's and O's or developing a skill, yet we don't talk about these other intangibles that just elevates you. Maybe you're not as skilled, but if the guys next to you are going to like hit harder, block more, run through a wall for you, that can make all the difference, not just in athletics, but in the boardroom as well.
Yeah, I think it's become so analytically driven. I was listening to an article on MLB Network yesterday, or a story on MLB Network yesterday, and they were talking about all the new analytics that all the technology they're putting in. The MLB is deciding on like what technology goes into every minor league park. Like, it's a big story. They're spending $1 million per ballpark in minor leagues to be able to put all this technology in.
It's fascinating.
And the question the guy asked was, one of the interviewers asked was, does this mean that everyone's going to have the same tech? Everyone's going to have access to the same information. Does this bring back old school scouting where you got to go and actually get to know somebody and find out their makeup? He actually used those words, their makeup, because there's going to be no secrets anymore. Like, you can't discover some guy that throws 100 miles an hour in some minor league, some small college, because everyone's going to have everyone's got the stats. So
yeah,
you have to go and find out, what the makeup. And they go, really? That would be interesting if it went the other way. All of a sudden, now you're going to have to look at makeup, not just tools.
I hope so.
Everyone's going to know. And in football, it's like, how high can you jump? How fast can you run? How big is your wingspan? Like, all those, how big are your hands? All those things that they look at. But you're right. They don't look at, who's willing to go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning and not go to the party at 9:00 the night before. Like, they don't have all those. And that's where you get to know the families. And that's kind of the old school scouting. But it'd be interesting to see if that returns when the technology has become so prevalent that everyone has the same information.
I hope so, because that's what analytics are cool. They're fun. They're helpful. But going with your gut and, like you just said, the old school way of scouting, recruiting, developing their makeup. That's the fun part. Like, even as a coach recruiter right now, my favorite thing going on the road to recruit, I want to find somebody that nobody else is looking at, who I can bring into our program here. And then in 3 years, everybody's like, how'd you get that guy? I'm like, he was in your backyard. How'd you miss him? Right? Like, that sort of thing, because they have those intangibles. They're not the fastest, they're not the greatest skill, but they become that because their makeup is so strong.
Well, I don't know who it was, but I've read stories about, and there's probably lots of different people have done it, but scouts and coaches even going to watch players play, and let's say basketball, they want to watch what he's doing on the bench. They want to watch how what he does between at halftime. How he interacts with the refs. Like, they want to see all those things because they can see the tools. Everyone can see the tools, but how do you see that? And how do you look at, in hockey where, how does that person react when they get a bad call against them?
Yeah.
How do they react when they get the coach sits them on the bench doesn't put them on the PP1? And like, how do you respond to those things? Because that's going to go a long way, in my opinion, to break the tie if someone's just as good as someone else, right? Because everyone can see your skills. I, I coached high level hockey a long time ago, and I had some kids that nobody would have taken, but they had the makeup and they had character, right? So it's like you got to have both. Like you got to have talent and character. And I think if you don't have character, your talent's not gonna last.
That's right. You mentioned earlier, Stephen, just being an executive in the Canadian Tire Corporation. I know you oversaw, programs like Sport Check, and I want to say Pro Hockey Life is even part of that group that Canadian Tire has. Is that right?
Yeah, I ran national sports and for about 5 years, Pro Hockey Life as well. We were part of the Sport Check. Sport Check was I was kind of on the executive team for Sport Check. I didn't have anything to do with day to day, but yeah, we had between the Quebec stores, the Sports Experts, Sport Check, all the other banners. There was like 250. Actually, there was more than that. There was 200 Sport Checks, but 350 stores total. But my group was like 18 national sports stores and about 15 Pro Hockey Lives that I looked after with my team.
Yeah. And so obviously, in that role, you oversaw a lot of other managers and supervisors, and through your time, you probably had the opportunity to have conversations with them, potentially promotions, maybe even the odd firing. Uh, are you seeing, like, you talked about, we were talking about athletes and being able to see this leadership profile when you were in that role in an executive and you were hiring and bringing on managers who could lead other people? How did you look for that and reward it? Like, what did you see from people coming up, the skills they developed and that sort of thing?
I think the biggest thing was how they treated people. And, like it would be the biggest cohort would have been our store managers, who are the front lines, really. They got the hard job. They've got to deal with customers every day. And they've got to deal with a lot of part-time employees. They'd be like a coach in the sports world, because they're on the front lines. They're facing it every day. They're working 60 hours a week. They've got, and I think for them, there was some that were really technically good. They could they could make the location look good, but they just didn't have it with their employees. They just didn't treat them well. They just, so I think that would be the ones that really cared about their people, the ones that put their people first, and the ones that were willing to be a team player. Like some of them would be, we had some that would be, they just wanted to do their own thing. They didn't want to be part of the program. So it felt like you need to go get your own business, because we're part of a bigger group here. So you need to fall in line a little bit. So it's actually something I wrote about for next week, unless I get preempted by Philip Rivers on Monday. It's about knowing when to lead and knowing when to follow. So I think you got to be a good leader and a good follower. So I think we had some guys that were really strong leaders, but they were terrible followers, and some guys that were the opposite. So you need to be both. You need to be able to know when to lead and know when to follow, and be part of a team. You can't always be the star, maybe. So
okay, I think there's there's another piece in the story that you wrote about Rivers, and I it just kind of, it's in his quote when at the end of the day, when he's like, "And whatever God's will, I'm happy with." And I know you kind of said that, kind of reframed the entire story for us, and how faith doesn't demand any guarantees, but it just allows us to surrender the outcomes. You've been talking about, just in this, you talked about there's really maybe some big choices and pieces in your life currently, and I think you've had lots of those. Some of our listeners won't know this right now, but a little over a year and a half ago or so, you were in the midst of kind of a consulting career and doing some other stuff, and you took a phone call as well. And it seemed like a crazy thing, and it was miles away, and somehow you made it work. And so,
yeah, that's interesting. So it was a year and a half ago. It was in May, and I just done a bunch of events and was really looking at building my consulting and coaching, business coaching practice, and got a phone call from an old friend, Wes Olmsted at Briarcrest, and said, "Hey, we got this situation. Stan's not, health isn't good. Would you consider coming out here as the athletic director?" And I actually said no, like right away. I just said no. So I wasn't as smart as Philip Rivers. Maybe he said no the first time too. And then
one of his 10 kids told him to do it. Yeah.
I said no. And then 15 minutes later, my wife came into the car because she was at a business meeting. I was waiting for her. And I told her, and she said, yes, you need to do this. And I started to say, well, let me at least think about it. And then I allowed myself to think about it and to pray about it. And by Sunday, I was reconsidering that maybe I could do it. So I reached out to Wes on Monday and said, hey, let's at least, I'm open to it. So it took me 3 days to process that it could be possible. And then it was about a 2-month process of back and forth to work out. I can't imagine Philip Rivers did it in 12 hours because it took me 2 months before we finally got everything, figured out all the logistics. But yeah, so I had the opportunity to be the athletic director at Briarcrest College. I had 0 athletic director experience, 0 higher education experience. And I was totally unqualified for the job from the technical perspective. But as we explored it, I felt like I had the leadership ability. So maybe there was a parallel there, and I didn't even see it until now. So I was kind of looking forward to a decision I'm making right now. But if I look in the mirror, maybe it is very similar that what Wes, who initiated the conversation, saw in me, because he knows me pretty well, that I would have the leadership ability to be able to step into a bit of a tricky situation for a short time, like Philip Rivers is for a short time, and hand it over to somebody else who we were fortunate to be able to do, to hand it over to Nigel. And I had the privilege of working with Shane and 4 other coaches and a couple and Jamie and Kyra and Lloyd. So it was really it was a fun 8 months for me. And at the end of the day, it was a lesson that if God gives us an opportunity, that we, even if we're not totally qualified, and that's the kind of situation I'm looking at right now, is very similar to that. So that's this story has given me the inspiration to at least keep moving forward and seeing this as a possibility. So
yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump on you first, Shane, and then you can, because like I remember you were announced, and I've known you for a while, Stephen. Not real well, but I've known you, and Shane's like, hey, we just hired this guy named Stephen Clements. Do you know who that is? I was like, yeah, it's great. He's a good dude. He's a consultant, not an athletic director. And I think there was like this fear and trepidation of change coming in, right? But inside of that, I think you showed up and served and just had conversations and figured out how to support. And I can let Shane talk some more.
Well,
justify his own fear and trepidation.
First of all, Stephen, I appreciated working with you and enjoyed the 8 months that we were together. And
hold on, I got Shane on your side because I told him that you were a big Jays fan. I think he was okay then.
Well, Stephen knew his audience pretty quick and understood where to start with me, and we instantly hit it off as fellow Jays fans. And the transition from Stephen to Nigel has been great. I think it was a fantastic handoff. I love it. The only challenge is that Nigel, and I hope he's listening to this, is a Yankees fan. And that's probably one of his biggest red flags with him as our AD. And so I took extra joy in the Jays crushing them in the playoffs this year. But I do miss our Jays talks, but I know we text from time to time. But no, I appreciated your leadership during that time. And I guess the question I have, because I never asked you this, because you were pretty transparent with us on what you brought to the table and what your goals were for the year. And I think you were the perfect hire for what we were going through at the time. But what was the hardest part about jumping into being our athletic director for 8 months?
I think it was just the fear I had that I didn't have any idea what I was getting myself into. Not knowing the people, I think I felt that I could, by focusing on, kind of getting to know the coaches was really and the staff was kind of my first priority. But just the technical side of it, like not knowing anything about athletics and college, not knowing about the school itself. Like, I attended the school like a long, long time ago, but didn't know any of the leadership of the school, who were really great, great with me. But I guess if I boil it down to it, would probably be fear of the unknown, like just not knowing. I didn't know what I didn't know. So every day, I literally every day I learned something new. It was like, wow, how did I not know this? Like I'd be like 6 weeks in and go, really? That's what we do? Oh, okay. Like I guess I should have known that 6 weeks ago. So like it was just every day was like a new learning curve. So it was like I had to just keep being open and listening. And I think that's why I went in, I believe I went in, I tried to go in with humility, saying, listen, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I need your guys' help. And so just trying to get, everybody on side and working together and building a unified team was really what I focused on. I didn't focus at all on the technical side. I wasn't great at the technical side. Nigel helped me a lot with that behind the scenes, even though a lot of people didn't even know that, but he was behind the scenes. He was the one I'd go to and say, hey, like, tell me about the history of this. Like, why do we do this? And have we always done this? And is this the right thing to do? Like, because people ask me questions and I'd have no idea how to answer them. So I said, let me get back to you on that one. Cause I didn't even know we did that. So I think that was it. Just fear of the unknown and just not knowing, the industry, not knowing the parameters, not knowing the people. I think the people side was the easiest for me. The other stuff was a little harder.
I enjoyed your weekly updates of what new thing you were learning. That was fantastic. And you, but again, like you said, you didn't fake it. And if you didn't know, you were willing to find out. And I appreciated that because we always knew where we stood. You were crystal clear on the objectives. And if you didn't know, you didn't come up with some crazy answer. You're just like, I don't know. What should we do? Right. And you gave some power to us as coaches, which was fantastic. What was the best part of your 8 months at Briarcrest?
Right behind me, there's a picture. I got a picture there. The men's basketball team winning the championship and hosting that and winning that and then going to Montreal with them. So
that just gave me chills.
Yeah.
Every time I see that picture, like mine's right.
They signed, all the athletes who won awards signed a little canvas. Nice. So I've got that behind me. I put that up on my wall. So
what a crazy journey that was, Stephen. And I was very, especially at the end of the season at the conference championship and you organizing all that. And then Montreal, like I was so thankful to have you there. My goodness. Like, it will be forever grateful.
No, that was awesome. I love doing it. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, Stephen, that was, a big piece of this. When you wrote the article and I read it yesterday and I thought to myself that, yeah, I know as you said in your article, you're currently in this decision point. But I'm going, yeah, but 18 months ago, he was also in this decision point and he said yes. And it seemed to be the title of your Substack, Show Up and Serve. I think that's what you did. And people flourished under your leadership. And so I think we can all take something from that. It wasn't safe. It wasn't guaranteed you guys win a championship. But as you wrote, because faith sometimes asks us to step forward and trust God with the outcome and be present where we're needed most. And so that's leadership. That's faith in action. And that's what it looks like to show up and serve.
I want to talk Blue Jays for a few minutes because Stephen, again, I said I miss our chats. Anyways, the Jays at a level that nobody around here knows like me. So you and I could dig a little bit deeper, but you wrote some really
bonus content of this episode.
This is the bonus content, but
for all you Jays fans you've been waiting for.
But not just because they won, because there's been, Stephen, you've wrote about them. And then there's been numerous articles, interviews, stories told about this Jays team was different. And not just because it's Toronto, right?
Yeah.
The way the organization, what they played, what they valued, how these guys cared. Like, how many of the Jays players talked about how this was the most fun, closest team they've ever been a part of? And that made it such a massive difference because they were pretty much like almost the same team that finished last place the year before. Yeah. They added a few pieces, but nothing crazy. But all of a sudden anyways, I want to talk about that because that's the part that fascinated me was there was a change in some of their leadership, but then you could tell there was a difference on the field because you and I were very frustrated the year before.
Yeah.
About like, oh, this is painful. And then it got really cool this year. So I just wanted to speak to because you got to be at numerous games. You're near the Toronto area. So you got a different perspective. So just wanted the things that you saw that made that team special.
I think as I think back on it a little bit in hindsight, Mark Shapiro came in 10 years ago and really set a new course. And it was not well received at the time because Alex Anthopoulos was so popular and here are these Cleveland guys coming in. But he had a clear vision for the team, for the stadium, for the resources. And they totally rebuilt the facilities in Dunedin. They made them world-class, probably the best in the league. They made the old beat-up Sky Dome into one of the nicest inside. It's like an old house that they renovated the inside. It's amazing now. It's a beautiful ballpark. And they actually had that vision of turning it from a stadium to a ballpark. I listened to him say that his why was to make it a great place to work and a great place to play. That's what got him up every day. So it started with the president, I believe, and I think that trickled down from there. So it started with leadership, and I think they actually did that. Like, you hear all the players talking about how good they are, like how they, because there's all this negative perception. I got to cross the border, or Canadian dollars, and milk in bags, like all these things. They're like
milk and bags, or whatever.
So milk and bags, yeah. So they've dealt with this. Now you hear these guys that are signing. They're going, yeah, I talked to this guy, talked to that guy. They said it's great. They look after the people. They look after the families. The families they're close. Like, so they've built this family in what really is just a pretty cutthroat business. So I think it really starts there. And then the other thing that stands out to me is I would get so frustrated over the last 2 years with John Schneider when he wouldn't rip the players. And like Craig Berube and almost every NHL coach does after every game, he never would. Like, I'd be so frustrated watching them, blow a lead or play terrible. And he'd say, I believe in my guys. I believe in my guys. I go, come on, tell me something else. But he never would. And he stuck with that line. Like, I don't know what he did behind the scenes, how much he yelled at them, and I know he's the type that would have difficult conversations because he made difficult choices and let guys go that I was shocked when they made some of those personnel decisions, that like Chad Green and others, that they just said, see ya. Yeah. But so I think it's leadership at the top. And then, back to my store manager example, you had a guy, and in your case, the coaches, they had a guy on the front lines, and he was taking all the bullets for the team. He would take the bullets for Vladdy when Vladdy wasn't hitting home runs. He'd take the bullets for the pitchers when they had a bad start. And he'd say, no, it's just, and he would never, he just did not ever turn on them. And I think that you saw the way they reacted to him at the end. Like, they just, so I think in the short answer is, and that trickled down, was leadership, and leadership at the top, leadership at the manager level, and then leadership from the players, and allowing them to, when you're bringing in guys like Bassett and Scherzer and guys that are older guys that, guys that were willing to do anything for the team. Like, they put the team first, like guys like Ernie Clement and Nathan Lucas. They were just grateful to have the opportunity, became stars of that team, and, because they were just grateful. So I think leadership and, they just gelled into a team, and it may never happen again. That may not happen this year. And I think the expectation is that it will, but I don't know if it will. Like, it's a different group. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's my quick thought.
I agree. It was awesome. I get warm and fuzzy feelings when I think about our Blue Jays from this past year. And I think a big piece is Canada's been pretty divided for the last half a dozen years, maybe longer. I don't know, but I don't think, we had this pandemic and shutdown and different things, and people just not really connecting as community as much anymore, or it would seem to me. And then something happened when the Blue Jays were on this run. It just felt like communities were together. Like, everyone in Moose Jaw was wearing Blue Jays jerseys in Saskatchewan, or Blue Jays paraphernalia, and everyone's talking about we're watching. And we set up Halloween outside of our house with my neighbor and put a 120-inch projector, on the garage door so that we could have the Jays game on. And people would there was kids that literally came, they had a bag of candy, they sat down on the driveway, cracked a can of pop, and ate candy instead of trick-or-treating and watching the Jays game for a couple innings. And then they got up and kept going. And it was just like, it was so fun. But I think there was something about the community that brought it back together, and there was some unifying events that kind of happened. And that's the really cool part that sports has the power to do for us. But it starts with the leadership, because if it was a selfish ball club, which it wasn't, it wouldn't have had that effect on our country, actually, and communities. So it was fun.
I think the type of players they've recruited, the type of management, the type of, the coaches they have there, it's the whole thing. It's not an easy recipe, or everyone would do it. And, there's the physical side, but I think there's also the character side. And that's bigger to me, because they all have the tools. I mean, they can all throw 100 miles an hour. They can all hit the ball a mile. Like, it's just, how does that all gel together? And being willing to, have less at bats, willing to sit out. I mean, guys that, Nathan Lucas doesn't get to start, and Schneider comes in and hits a home run on the first pitch. So, like, how do you even envision something like that's going to happen? Right. And why are you starting this guy? Like, first pitch, gone, home run. So, I mean, there's things like that happen. They're just almost surreal. And, I think the Jays really understand, like, I heard that so many times about, we're not playing for a city, we're playing for a country. Like they see when they go to Seattle and Phil Half say, they go to Minnesota and everybody from Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba come down. Like they understand that. Like the guys that have been there for a while and they've passed it on to other people. So they understand the fact that they're representing a country, not just a city. It's almost an honor to them. And they talked, like many of them talked about that, in post-game interviews. So,
yeah,
that's right. That's right. Well, that wraps up our bonus content as well. And so appreciate this. And Stephen, thank you for joining us today. This was a lot of fun. And I hope that our listeners got to enjoy this after a great Monday night performance from Philip Rivers, and they can jump on, Sportsnet, TSN, and check out some fantastic highlights from his Monday night performance. But
some old man football.
Yeah, it's great.
Bring it on. And I wanted to see them hire Trevor Harris, get him in there. Throw some dimes.
We get to watch that all season next year.
Yes.
As a sign off, it's been a fantastic season for us at Grit and Growth, and we just want to say Merry Christmas to all of our listeners, and thank you for joining us throughout this year. We hope that you have a fantastic holiday season, and travel safe if you're out to see family. Thanks so much for listening to Grit and Growth.
Yeah, hey, if you enjoyed that episode, it would mean a lot to us if you shared it with a friend, a teammate, a family member, or just left us a quick review wherever you listen. That's how we reach more people and keep great guests coming your way.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes with incredible guests and real stories that'll change and inspire you.
And until next time, stay curious, stay humble, and keep growing.